Hello and welcome to our Neuro supplement. Almost like a vitamin B12 shot, but on a biopsychosocial level, and hopefully we're playing around with names. We'll get there eventually, but so far it is a supplement, which is a good thing because we always need a little bit more. And we are continuing from our momentum on the 28th of December, talking about goal setting, motivation, how that manifests in the body, and playing around with some more practical examples, both of setting the frame to get what you want, keeping what you have and getting more, and not losing momentum. I think one of the most important points that reiterates itself to me every time I get to have a conversation with you guys is that the body at rest stays at rest. And we can get very stuck even when there has been perceived failure. And I say perceived failure very specifically because failure is feedback. And if we can reframe some of our perceptions of the obstacles along the way, we might be able to overcome them, especially using the tip that Rian gave this evening on I want this so that we can future pace it. You might also remember a video by Dr. Joe Dispenza that I shared a while ago. I will do it again, where he talks from going from thinking to doing to being. And that is literally changing your mind, because neurons that fire together wire together. And when we have an association with anticipation, with the vision and the outcome, because the brain does not distinguish between true visualization and the actual experience, you literally fire a neural pathway in that direction. And then the body goes. Where the mind goes, the body follows, and vice versa.
Yeah. The momentum from my part at least, the momentum that I'd like to keep on with is the how to, almost want to say, fortify your goal setting process with respect to your individuality, like what you want, and in respect with the neuroscience, with what we're made of and what we have to work with to achieve our goals. So here's a nice thing to remind you. It's the same brain that thought of the Christmas cake, the disaster of a thing, and it's the same human brain that put a man on the moon. Something really, really fantastic. And it's the same human brain that came up with the one idea, terrible idea, and then the one idea, brilliant idea. So, and within all of us in this group, we have the infinity between the Christmas cake and the moon landing. We really have what it takes. So it's nice to know you've got the goods for this. You've got the ingredients for this. And now here's how we use it together. So one of the things that I hammered on in our session was to articulate the concepts of what you want, to be very clear about what you want, and then to link your motivation so strongly to it, as strong as you possibly can to it, so that it becomes so assimilated into the same thought process. So here's another way of doing it. Like the example I gave is like, so that to be able to apply the objectives and the goals we have, to apply it to our lives. That's exactly that doing part that Melissa referred to in one of her videos. It's the doing part that brings us to being. And the being part is the contempt and the meaningfulness of our lives. That's the being part. But how we get there is we need to do a few things. We're not going to arrive there pasella.
And that is where we persist with amplitude. That is why having a tangible reminder of why it matters is so important, because there will be a day when it's hard. And then we have to persist. When our intention aligns with our attention, then energy goes in that direction. And our bodies, like we keep saying, the body will follow, but it might not want to get started. And that is why the why really matters. And manifesting it seeing yourself there with meaning that speaks to you on a value level, not just a cognitive level, not just it will be nice, that speaks to your core being as a person. That is going to be the thing that makes it worth getting up and going after the goal.
So on one of the psychotherapy techniques that I'm really, really fond of in using, that I'd like to share with you is the surplus reality technique. So you're welcome to go Google it and do your own little research on it. It's a technique used in psychodrama where it's primarily used for role development, not just for goal setting. It's not like what do you want? It's like who do you need to be to just automatically get those things? Can you see? It's sort of looking at goals a little bit differently. It's not, and it's from an internal point of view. It's not what do you want to get to make your insides feel good. It's like, how can I grow my insides to get the things I want on the outside automatically? So here's how surplus reality works as a technique. First of all, you need to acknowledge the here and the now of what the truth of the matter is, quite honestly. It's like, well, at this moment, I don't have the professional development level that I want. And so the surplus reality is to speak yourself into your present self into the future. It's like, well, what do I want? It's like, I want to complete some of my postgraduate work so that I can be a more meaningful and more dependable member of my therapy team, that I can be of more use to my client and enjoy more professional stability. So that's my present self speaking myself into the future. Now here's how surplus reality works. You take the position of your future self and you speak it into your present. And that would look like, wow, Rian, congratulations with the postgrad. I always knew you could do it, and I'm proud of you. And bloody hell, man, you look really fancy in your graduation suit. Something like that. But that's how you close that loop. You speak your present self into the future, and then your future self speaks into your present.
What's vital in this process is that there is no value judgment from the future self on the present. You don't go, you idiot, look how long this took. All of this is affirming, because otherwise we put our brains into a state of fight or flight because we make it unsafe in our own minds. We literally speak into our states of persistence, our beliefs, because a belief is really just a thought that you've said yes to. And if you can believe where you're going, because now your brain is going to visualize it with proof, stating it in the positive really closes the loop. We're also there speaking into states of commitment to myself, where I am now, where I am going, and then acknowledging the commitment from the state where I'm going into the state where I am now. So again, it closes the loop. We also have skills of dialogue, because how you speak to yourself from the future state is important. The language must make sense to you. The meaningful words must be your own. You don't want to speak into what someone else would say, like, congratulations, Mr. Dutoy. That's not how you would speak to yourself. For me, it would be, well done, Lissa. And speak to yourself as you refer to yourself, and it has to come from the inside with the meaningful words, in the meaningful tone. And that will allow you to attentively listen to yourself, which also creates the opportunity to probe the meaning and the importance, because things mean different things at different times in your life. If you're future pacing and you see yourself having achieved a goal, there might be a wave of feeling that goes, oh, this is not everything that I thought it would be, but take it anyway and then add more. This is not a stage of discrediting anything. This is acknowledge. This is a yes and. This is a win-win and a yes and developmental tool inside and out. And then we get to a point where we state the reason, the so that. When we state the reason, even before we make the proposal to ourselves, we align from a belief system through a cognitive system, through a behavior system, and that makes us less susceptible to distracting emotions yanking us out of the process. Because if the meaning is clear, my anxiety doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was a brilliant coloring in of the picture of the surplus reality. Another technique, and the last one that I'd like to share, is called chaining. And chaining has two sides to it. It's like Melissa just explained, like the yes and component. Now that's called forward chaining. And what that does is it continuously builds on what you have, grows it, reevaluates, goes again. Integrates what you have, builds on that, reevaluates, goes again. It's that one step more kind of idea, and that really helps to ground you in a process of uncertainty. It really helps you to go, well, how do I know I'm doing it right? It's well, let's just take one more step and let's see how it goes kind of idea. It's a real gradual exposure to the unfamiliarity of your challenge, and the way this works is the concept of driving to Cape Town, or Sally driving to Blackpool, if that's where you're going for your holiday. It's like, well, Cape Town is 1,000 kilometers from Pretoria. Like, how the hell? It's like, well, do you know that Cape Town is there? It's like, yes, it's assuredly so that it is there. Even if I don't look at it, it's there. It's like, okay, well, how far can your lights shine? Well, only 100 meters. It's like, well, Cape Town is 1,000 kilometers away. It won't work. It's like, yes, but it will work 100 meters at a time. And you'll make your way to Cape Town 100 meters at a time, bit by bit by bit. That's that forward training. This is what I have, and then one more. This is what I'm doing, and one more time. And this is what I'm committing to, and just one more minute of it. Just that one more forward training. It's how you manage the neuroscience state of growth, and fortifying it against anxiety. That's forward training. The other part of the same idea is backward training. It's like, well, you're in Pretoria now. What do you know about Cape Town? It's like, well, I know there's some sea and some bicycle routes, and there's a mountain. Oh yeah, there's a mountain. And there's a few nice restaurants with really good seafood, and there's a few wine estates, and okay. Well, okay, that's what is there. But how will it feel when you go there? What do you want there? It's like, oh, I really enjoy climbing Cable Mountain. My legs are always a little bit stiff, but you know what? The view is incredible, and it is nice to sit there. And I enjoy having my coffee there. So what you're doing is backward training is you start from the goal, working backwards to where you are. And what you're actually doing is you're just familiarizing yourself with the road. That's all. That's what you're doing. So with forward training, you're gaining yourself, you're gaining your momentum, and you're building your consistency, one step more. And with backwards training, you're just familiarizing yourself. Is Cape Town still where I want to go? Is that mountain still there that I want to see? Is the vineyard still there that I'd like to taste? And in that certainty dynamic that you're creating, you're fortifying your goal process. You're deepening your meaning, and you're reminding yourself that what you want is important, so that you can apply it into your life, into the doing part of your life, into becoming who you want to be. That's me.
An NLP trick for this. NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming, and it is it's how we talk to ourselves. It is our voices are the ones we hear 100% of the time, and we can talk ourselves into and out of Christmas cake and flying to the moon and everything in between. And a gentleman named Robert Dilts developed the model that I'm going to talk through quickly, which works effectively from moving from the present state to a desired state. It is practical, and it is forward chaining and backward chaining, just asking a couple of specific questions, which might be useful, especially if you are a journaler, because it allows you to add more. We never throw away anything that comes up. That's very important. Your answer stays, and we add to it. We create a surplus. So SCORE stands for Symptoms, Causes, Outcomes, Resources, and Effects, which sounds a little bit clinical, but it isn't. The symptoms are, where are we presently? What can we see and feel and hear? Where are we? What is the present state? And we want to take this from the body to the mind to the emotions. And here we look at, well, what do we want to change? If everything was going fine, we wouldn't want to set a goal in the first place. So the problems that we identify as being on our mind the most, that are the most noticeable and the most conscious aspects of the current situation. What surface and presenting symptoms do I notice? What have I not attended to? And that's where the chronicity comes up. Where haven't I put in the work to further my state? What are my long-term symptoms? And how do I represent these? What meanings do I attribute to them? What meaning do I put to my current state? When I assign language to the state that I'm in, when I can describe my current state, again, I manifest it. It makes it real. And it means I have a baseline from which to move. We can't just launch off of no starting block. Does that make sense from a neurological perspective?
Yeah. What it does is it keeps you orientated in that process of the present self and the future self. That's really deeply rooted in our own sense of growth. It's like the ideal and actual self. Not that there's anything wrong with the present self, but the process of growth can enhance and advance present capacity. So it's well rooted in theory and in proof. You know, people find themselves there. I think the only thing I have now is an example, or what would you
please.
like? Okay. So one day I was driving to work like a normal person on a Tuesday, and there was this lady on the radio who climbed Mount Everest, and so the first thing that went through my mind is, don't do that. Don't do that. It's dangerous, and 80 people die on that mountain every single year, and they leave you there when you die. And every person who died there was as motivated as you think you are now. So don't do it. That was my first thought. Then my second thought was, well, how the hell did you do that? And then I started paying attention, and I really listened to how she explained her story. So it was an hour interview, and she kept on going about how hard she was working, to get herself ready to do it, and the friends she made along the way on preparing, and friends she lost, people who she thought was really, really there for her, who were not as dependable as she needed them to be for that chapter in her life. And they're not bad people, they're just not the right people for that chapter. And how she had difficulties with finding money to buy the equipment, which is hectic expensive. And then somebody stole their damn equipment. And then, it was really rough. And then she was just like, driving home from a meeting one day, and then somebody said, "Oh, are you the person wanting to climb Mount Everest? I've got some old gear if you want to buy. It's still in pretty good shape." And and then she got new equipment, and how committed she was to waking up early and watching her diet and increasing her blood flow capacity and strengthening herself up both physically and mentally, and it was really, and then I started paying attention to what I was listening to, because in the hour interview she spoke for about 45 minutes on the process of getting ready to just get there, and then she spoke for about 10 minutes about climbing the mountain, and then she was on top. She took a selfie, and then she had to climb down because you can't stay there for long. And then for the last few minutes, people were just phoning in, telling her how proud they are of her and how inspirational she is to them, and how they're planning to climb Mount Everest, the next opportunity they get, and then it really dawned on me. It's like the process of working towards her goal demanded the absolute best orientation of herself and her world and her abilities and her thoughts and her mentality and her values. She's never taken herself that seriously in her entire life. It was such an incredibly purifying and developing process for this woman to get ready to climb Mount Everest. And I'm really happy she climbed the mountain, and she's got a book out, and she's famous now and whatnot. But the best version of her that she's ever been in her life was the one where she was fighting so fiercely for the goal that she was hoping to achieve. And that speaks to me, like on a human level, on how our quest and our journey for growth and improving our love for ourselves is really the best way to spend our energy. It's the most meaningful life that we can have, is leaning forward into bigger dreams. So it's an incredible process to build on, and I wish you all the best with your journeys as well.
The journey does require the brutal exploration of the here and the now. And once we have the idea of, I want this so that I need to know what contributed to the current state so that there's something to change. It has to, we can't stay theoretical. We need to make this as practical as possible. And to that end, in the SCORE model, we go from symptoms to causes, which are the representations and belief that bring the situation about. The cause, by the way, is not the experience in itself. The cause is the interpretation of what we experience. So we experience someone being horrible, the person saying awful things. That's not the entire picture, because we take what they've said and then we behave accordingly. So there is a stimulus and a response, and we have to figure out the responses to the stimuli which brought us to the present state. And we have to ask, is this the only contributing factor to this particular situation? Because if it is the only one, well, then it's quite manageable to change. We need to figure out all of the component parts, all of the causes of the present state, so that we know what we are changing. In the example of the lady who climbed Everest, she had to improve her blood circulation, which means she had to work on her VMO max, because those two things in her present state would have put her in real danger on the mountain. So you need to see, how did you get where you are now, so you know what to do differently for where you want to be. Where do you want to be? That's the outcome. That's the exciting part. And the goal plays as much of a role in the system of human consciousness as the present stuckness does. When we have a goal that speaks to our integrity, when we have a goal that speaks to our meaning and our belief system, like we were saying in the session, that is a contract with yourself. And if you manifest it and you can feel yourself there and see yourself there, then the body goes there. It's rooted from the inside out. And the questions for the outcome is, what direction have I put myself in? Assuming that you're on the way already. And this is where the magic of languaging really comes into play. It's not, where do I want to go? It's, now that I'm in this direction already, what's happening along the way? If I continue on this path, where will it take me? And that brings us back to the yes and orientation, because there is more. What other outcomes may arise from this outcome? And what final outcome state do I want to move towards so that I? And then you can complete your sentence with the highest intention, with the deepest meaning. And once we know where we are and where we are going, not even where we would like to go, where we are going, then we have to figure out the how of it. And that comes down to the resources part of the SCORE model, which are the factors and components of thought, emotion, memory, by which we create our representations, as well as the externals, such as I might need someone with whom to hook in to do it. I might need a certain amount of money. I might need a certain amount of access to medical resources, whatever the case may be. So we have, what personal resources do I have already? What might I just not have paid attention to before? This is why the self-awareness is so important. And again, it's a credit and valuing frame of mind. So we're not saying you're useless for not using them. We're just saying you had this all along. That's fantastic. What more? How do you add this to your repertoire now? And then we check in on the external resources. And then we start playing with the effects, the results, and the consequences of applying the resources to the situation so that the meaning can manifest. And it's important to there just check in what happens when you see yourself, when you in the future state. What do you experience on a sensory level and on an emotional level when you create the surplus reality? When you are there, how do you stand? How's your posture? Because posture will tell us exactly where the frame of mind is.
Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on the posturing and the reality check of it. There are so many orientations to how our bodies reveal the availability of our motivation and the alignment of our mind. It's even in old theories. There's a theory that says you can estimate the readiness of a person's mind by the posture of the body, and it's grounded now very deeply in somatic praxis type therapies that I'm deeply fond of because of their direct communications to the central nervous system. So here's a few ideas about posturing that's really accessible to you guys. So just by standing upright, chest out, chin up, shoulders back. There's something called, I think it's called the Superman posture or something like that. Yeah, it's like superhero posture. It's like both hands on your hips, not like little teapot short hands, not that one, both hands on the hips, but with chin up, chest out, shoulders back, and to just stand, breathe deeply, and feel the thoracic change in you, the chest change in you when you breathe. And if you stand there like that, breathing properly, maintaining the posture, your testosterone goes up by like the ridiculous amounts, like by 20%. 20% testosterone is a change in motivational state. It'll make you do something. It has a change in serotonergic uptake. It will force action. So to just stand in that posture would really start by aligning your physiological internal state to your internal articulated vision or your goal state. And then just take the first step. So there are postures that we know that are I almost want to say preparatory to action, and it's almost like sitting and like rocking and like counting. It's like, and by 3 you get up. It's like 1, 2, 3, and by 3 you actually just get up. We're almost conditioned to on 3, get up, and we do. So part of the posturing and the alignment of your internal physiological state with your mental state, again, creates the certainty and the comfort zone and the polyvagal balance that you want. So that when you start thinking of things, it does not make your body anxious. It does not change your forward-leaning state. So how you stand, how you feel, how you move when you're in process of pursuing your goals is really important. So Melissa has a really good point on making sure it's also not just in the ideas of what we see and what we hear, but also in how we move and how we stand, how we posture in it. Posturing also has a direct effect on the serotonin synthesis we have. We can see people who are defeated. They walk with their shoulders slumped forward, with their heads down, with their eyes cast down. Their arms don't swing right. And it's not their bodies that made them that way. It's the fact that they have a defeated mental state that the body now just reflects. Exactly the same for the opposite when people win. They raise their arms above their head. And we know this now that activates the limbic system. That forces an endorphin feedback. It makes you feel good. That's how come when people dance really nicely or when they dance very freely, they frequently dance with their arms in the air. And it does put them into an elevated state. Now I don't know which comes first, the happiness and then the arm goes up, or the arm's going up and then the happiness, but they do seem to arrive at the winning line at the same time. So if you've got one, use it until the other one shows up. But posturing is an essential key to real access of your central nervous system and of your inherent capacity and capabilities.
And so to round off on this one, when you see yourself achieving your goal so that you can, and that you will, and that you are ... Take a minute to feel how your body feels when you are there. And then keep the motion in that direction. Because while a body at rest stays at rest, a body in motion stays in motion until acted upon by a force greater than it. And that's physics. And when physics makes sense for neuroscience, I get really excited because we can't really argue with that.